Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Laura Wheeler from the Jag State, Indiana team, and today we will have a short technical assistant video on all things follow-up. Let's get started. So in this video, we will be covering barrier cleanup, entering and checking graduation dates, entering follow-up data, participant placement, and running reports. So a big part of the specialist's role is to help students navigate and, whenever possible, remove barriers. It's a JAG national standard that 90% of participants will have a reduction of one or more barriers. At this time, JAG Indiana's current average barrier removal by school is at 0.403, or less than half of one barrier. 52% or 73 sites show no barriers removed for any students on the 2018-2019 roster. So this is a great time to go onto your rosters and check to see if there are any barriers that can be removed from last year's students. The way that you do that is select last year's roster, choose a student. When their drop-down menu opens, click Barriers. And then next to the barrier, you'll enter the removal date and click Update. This is also the screen that you can use if you find a barrier that should be added. It's important to review each and every student at the start of the school year, around the midterm break, and at the end of the school year. On to graduation. So there are two main ways to enter graduation dates for a student. There's the individual date that can be entered on the student's screen, or you can batch update in the enter menu. And there are also two main ways to check graduations. One is from the graduation screen, comparing to a roster report, and then also a data download. So here you'll see in the foreground, there's the individual level screen. So you would click on the student's name, and then on the contact demographics screen, you'll scroll to the bottom, and then you'll see graduation date. You'll enter the date there and click Save. If you have many students with the same graduation date, it's faster to go from the Enter screen. So you'll click Enter, that drop-down will appear, you'll click Graduation, you'll enter the date that all the students graduated on, and then you'll select the students to whom that applies to, and click Update. To review graduation's dates from the graduation screen, you'll be on the screen that's in the background. You'll create a roster report and print that, and you'll review all the students who are listed as 12th grade, and then compare that to those who have graduation dates to see if everything matches up. Now, to use a data download to review the same information, you'll go to the Review tab at the top of the screen. You'll click Download Data. The data download you'll be using is the participant. You'll run it for the 2018-2019 school year, and then you'll select 12th grade for the grade in school. Once the download loads, click the download save icon. It kind of looks like an old floppy disk. The download will open in an Excel, and then there you'll have a list of all of the seniors there and the information that you've entered on their contact demographic screen. When you scroll to the far right-hand side, you'll be able to see if they have a graduation or an HSE date. This is also a really useful sheet when you're doing your follow-ups because it has all of their contact information right there. So when it comes to entering follow-ups, be sure that you enter them as they occur. Don't wait till the end of the month to complete follow-ups. By the 15th of the month, around 50% or more of your follow-ups should be entered into EMDMS. And follow-up is more than just a phone call. So think about what services are you offering your students, or could you be offering your students? If they're unemployed and they're filling out applications but they're not getting called in for interviews, offer to review their resume, offer to review an application that they've filled out. If they are being called in for interviews but not getting the job, offer to coach them on interview questions that could even be done over the phone. If they're a post-secondary ed student, remind them where the Learning Center is on their campus, remind them about the Career Center, even go as far as opening up their website for that school and looking up for an email or a contact for a person there so that the student could have that information. When you talk to these students, ask them about current tests or projects or what's going on in classes. If they have a hard time answering these questions, they may not be attending. So plan to coach the students every month. If they tell you everything is great and they have the grades to prove it, then talk to them about campus jobs, clubs, extracurriculars, things that could boost their resume. Now, when somebody is reading through your follow-ups, it should read like a narrative, and they should have enough detail to know what's going on and what's happened with that student last. Now on to placements. So when a student has a job, you'll put in an employment placement. When they have a post-secondary education connection, you'll put in an education placement. If they join the military service, then employment placement will pop up and you'll put in an employment placement. Now, before you put any placement in, you'll need to gather all of the information. For an employer, this would include wages, hours, address, phone number, and then a manager's name and their contact information. I find that the USPS zip code tool is the best way to verify that an address is correct. So EMDMS is based off of the mailing wizard for USPS. So if the company uses a PO box and not their physical address, you'll need that PO box information. So you'll take the address that you got from the student, you'll plug it into the USPS website, and it will either tell you if it's a valid mailing address or not. If it's not, then look at the company's website, look at their information in yellow pages. You can also just talk to the employer and have an employer contact out of the way. For post-secondary education placements, for school placements, this is only post-secondary. So you won't be entering any information if they are attending an HSC program or an Excel Center, or if they're back to a high school. So you'll enter things that are short-term certificates, 2-year and 4-year schools. For military, it's important to note that National Guard is considered part-time employment. So when you're entering a follow-up for a student who's in the National Guard, it will be a part-time placement, not a military service placement. For all other military service placements, you will get that same pop-up asking for employment information, and the best way to get this is to contact their recruiter. They'll also be a very helpful person when you're trying to complete follow-ups on this student and they are not able to respond. Lastly, anytime a status changes, if they got more hours, if they got a raise, a change of a title, addition of benefits, or if they quit or they're terminated or otherwise leave the job or the school placement, you'll need to go into the system and close those out. So you'll click Edit next to the placement, and it'll bring up the information where you can either update hours or wages, or at the bottom, you can put in a termination date, the date that it occurred, and then hit Update. So there are a few helpful reports while you're in the follow-up period. So firstly, follow-up, senior only, outcomes achieved by school, 5 of 5 report, and an unable to contact report. So why would we use a follow-up report versus the outcomes achieved report? Well, the follow-up report firstly gives us all the information on our non-graduates. It also will tell us if anyone is marked as unavailable or available unemployed. And then the outcomes achieved report versus the 5 of 5 report. The outcome achieved report will give us information on all of the outcomes regardless if they've hit 5 of 5 or not, where the 5 of 5 report only shows us if the school is at 5 of 5. The 5 of 5 report is what JAG National uses to verify that your site is at 5 of 5. So that is valuable to run, especially towards the end of May. There's also an unable to contact report where if you're just concerned about what your UC rate is, you can quickly run that and it'll have just that information. So going in a bit further, your follow-up report, follow-up status, senior only. So the best way to ensure that you're running this correctly is that you'll look at the header, and it looks like the one that we have on the screen here. So the program lists your site. It has the correct multiple program application, multi-year alternative ed. It has the correct school year. So our follow-up cohort right now is 2018-2019, and it has the current date range. A follow-up report without a date range is not a valid report. It's easiest to just put in the entire month. So for this month, July 1 to July 31, and the report will only give you the information up to the current date. So once you've put in those parameters, your report will come out looking something like this. And you'll start reviewing from the top. Is your header correct? If yes, you move down. Does the total number of participants make sense? Has it changed since the last month? If everything looks correct, you go on to graduation. Does the graduation total in percent match what you know about your program cohort? If it does, you move on. If not, then you'll look to your manager and ask them to help research with you. The same thing for total number of participants. If your total number of participants has gone up, contact your manager and they will help look into that with you. So starting at positive outcomes and just starting at the top, running down, you'll look at how many students have a full-time placement, how many have a full-time placement with school, a part-time placement with school, and then it gives you your total civilian placement rate. So you can do some quick math there and see 1 full-time placement plus 7 part-time placements gives you the 8 total civilian placements. They also have 1 military placement, and that brings us to our second of the 5 505 measures, total civilian job placement and military service. So you can quickly add up to see if that math works, and it does. We have 9, and then we would add in their post-secondary education connections. At this time it's 0, so our total positive outcomes is also 9. This brings us to our third of the 505s, so total positive outcomes. On the lower part of this report, and now it's on the right-hand side of your screen, in the middle you'll see non-positive outcomes, and we'll skip back to this after we look at the placement analysis. So finishing up our 5 of 5 categories under placement analysis, you'll see total and full-time jobs. In this instance, it is 2. And then it has total full-time outcomes, and below that, total and full-time placements, also 2. Those 2 make up the last 2 parts of our 5 of 5. Total full-time placements and total full-time jobs. Below that, you'll see further education rate. So this is all further education, post-secondary ed, and for our non-graduates, high school or HSE. And the goal there is around 45%. So now we're going to go back to the non-positive outcome section that we skipped. And the first one you see there is unavailable for employment as per JAG standard. The code for this is UN. It's confused at times for unavailable, as in you called someone and they told you that they're unavailable to come to the phone right now. That's actually an unable to contact. Unavailable means that they are not physically capable of going to work. So there's a medical issue, they're incarcerated, they're institutionalized, perhaps they are pregnant or parenting and have recently given birth and they're on a medical leave. Things of that nature would cause somebody to be unavailable per employment. Your manager will follow up with you anytime that this is used. Where unable to contact during the reporting period means that you've reached out multiple times and you simply are unable to get through to them. And then available unemployed means that you have contacted this person, had a conversation, and they are just simply not engaged in a work or a post-secondary education placement or a military placement at this time. If you ever have any questions on your follow-up report, if something doesn't look quite right, reach out to your manager for help. So this concludes our short tutorial on follow-up. If you need any help, please feel free to contact me. My email is lwheeler@dwd.in.gov. Have a great day.